Welcome to We the Kids organization. We are excited to have you for this wonderful interview, and we are glad that you could join us. My name is Brad Fields, and I am the We the Kids journalism leader and Patriot Academy Constitution coach. One of the main purposes of We the Kids is to restore God back to the American story. How do we do that? Through the use of original source documents. So we're going to understand America through the lens of the Founding Fathers, and we're going to look at all of their statements, including their statements about God and faith. One example of this is the Revolutionary Declaration of Independence, which says this: we believe, or we hold, these truths to be self-evident, that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What is he talking about? What happiness could he mean? There's 1,000 different ways to interpret happiness. So let's try to see if we can use original source documents to better understand this concept. In 1796, President George Washington said this about political prosperity. And this is in 1796. He said this: of all the dispositions that lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. And vain would that man claim patriotism who would subvert these two great pillars of human happiness. So how do we pursue this happiness? It's got to include religion and morality, which George Washington said you can't get rid of. So at We the Kids, we are laser focused on establishing those concepts of God and using morality and religion to acquire the citizen attribute of virtue, which George Washington would later talk about, and all the Founding Fathers. And so it is an exciting opportunity that we have to interview sheriffs all across America. And who are we getting to do these interviews? That's right, the youth of America. The youth of America are learning principles of journalistic integrity and factual gathering of information, and then using that information to honor both our Founding Fathers in their understanding of the Constitution and of our current state in the culture. And so there's not a lot of people in today's world that are focusing on these things. And so we pride ourselves here at We the Kids in restoring God back to Americans' history. And we are so grateful that you could join us in this interview with Sheriff Richard Mack and our youth journalist, Jack Lani. Our special guest, Sheriff Richard Mack, understands all of these things and has written books and has done an incredible job on educating Americans and citizens and interested guests all throughout the world, actually. So what an absolute delight we have in hearing from him how he was able to fight against what has been called the Brady Bill. Now, a little history behind the Brady Bill. It was passed in the 1990s by President Bill Clinton. Now, the reason why it's called the Brady Bill is because of James Brady. He was the White House press secretary in 1981. And during the presidential assassination attempt, he was actually shot in the head and injured and disabled for the rest of his life. And so after that experience, his goal was to try and get guns out of the hands of criminals. And in the 1990s, a law was passed. Now, it seems good on the surface, but the thing that was unique about it is that it violated the 10th Amendment, because before the federal government had what is now this kind of background check, there was an interim period before they had this up and running. And they wanted the local sheriffs who are under the state to do these background checks. And so this went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court found that Sheriff Richard Mack was actually correct, and he won that case. And so I'm going to introduce you now, Jack Lani and Sheriff Richard Mack, in this wonderful interview that will hopefully enlighten us all on what we can do to better defend their Constitution.
Hello, everyone. My name is Judy Frazier. I'm the founder of We the Kids. We the Kids is a nationwide organization based on getting kids involved in learning projects, learning America's history through doing projects. And today we have Jack Lani, who's been involved with We the Kids for a number of years with his mom, Scarlett Lani, here to join us. So Jack's briefly going to tell you about what he's been involved with We the Kids and how many years him and his mom have been involved, not only Jack, and then we will talk a little bit about who Jack is going to be interviewing today.
Hello, my name is Jack Lani. I have been with We the Kids since April of 2020, and the first interview I ever did was when I interviewed General Grant. And being a part of We the Kids, I've been on many radio shows. I was on the 1180 WFYL out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I was on the Andrea K show on The Answer San Diego in August of 2023. As also being a part of We the Kids, I've been on Sam Bushman's radio show, The Liberty Roundtable. I did a program for Lydia Nettle back in 2022, and I've done the Britfield Christmas Adventures play, and maybe I've probably done more. I don't even remember.
Jack, you have a very, very gifted mom. You want to tell a
Thank
little
you.
bit
Oh,
about
yeah.
what she does?
Yes, this is my mom over here, Scarlett. She is really great. Let me tell you, she's for like the past 6.5 years. She has been a hardcore patriot. And it all started when she taught her first Constitution class at our old church. And then from there, she has done two major classes at the church that she attends now. And she works for Patriot Academy. She's very well known. She's what you call a super Constitution coach over there because she has done so much for him. She's such an example. She thinks of everything. She's very hard work, and I'm blessed to have her as my mom.
That's really good. That's really sweet.
Well, thank you, Jack. Well, I have to say, in my work as a Constitution coach, I always involved my children, that would be Jack and his brother Henry. So they would get up in front of the classes too and recite quotes from our founding fathers and the Declaration of Independence, parts of the Constitution, and all of that, because it's part of training up the rising generation.
Well, Jack, let's talk about Sheriff Mack.
Richard Mack is a former Arizona sheriff and founder of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, CSPOA, and a national speaker on constitution rights. He served nearly 20 years in law enforcement, beginning in Provo, Utah, and was elected sheriff of Graham County in Arizona in 1988. Not only was he a sheriff and an officer, but he also fought the 42nd president of the United States, Bill Clinton, over a bill called the Brady Bill. And he took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and he even ended up winning the case. Not many people get to say that they won a Supreme Court case or even been to the Supreme Court, but very few get to say, like, who gets to say, I won the Supreme Court against the president. So if that even wasn't enough for you, there's more to it because he was named by the National Rifle Association, which you know is the NRA. He was named the Law Officer of the Year and is even inducted into their Hall of Fame. Currently, he teaches, consults, and empowers people from around the country and around the world. Please help me welcome Sheriff Richard Mack. Sheriff Mack, thank you so much for joining us today. It's going to be great to talk with you about a few things that can be very important and that adults and kids might want to learn about.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm really proud of this program and proud of We the Kids. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
The first thing I wanted to ask is, so you were being a sheriff, you know about that. What is the role of the sheriff? And who does the sheriff work for and protect?
Well, yeah, that's an excellent question. The Office of Sheriff is the oldest law enforcement office in the United States. It actually started over 1,000 years ago in old Anglo-Saxon law, It was an office highly revered in England, and the first settlements all had some form of a sheriff in the United States in the 13 original colonies. In fact, 3 signers of the Declaration of Independence were former sheriffs. One that I can recall right off the top of my head right now is Oliver Wolcott, spelled Walcott. He was a former sheriff, and we still have former sheriffs today that serve in the United States Congress and state legislatures all across the country. So the important thing about the sheriff is that he's the only elected law enforcement officer anywhere in the country. He's not like a chief of police who was appointed by another political body. I don't demean chiefs of police. We need them, and they swear the same oath of office that the sheriff does. But he is a bureaucrat. He's appointed by another, like I said, another committee, usually the city council or a group of citizens that are appointed by the city council. But the sheriff is an example of why we are a constitutional republic, because the people choose. In a republic, the people choose. The people are in charge. And so we're this republic, as the founding fathers called it. Our republican form of government has nothing to do with the party system, so that we can make sure that the people remain in charge. If you read the Declaration of Independence, you know that we, the people, are in charge. If you see the beginning of the Constitution, as the first 3 words are "we, the people." And so the sheriff is appointed by, for, and of the people, and they review his job every 4 years to see if they want to keep him. That's an extremely powerful position that the people have, and their stewardship is extremely important to be in charge of our government. And so then the sheriff, guess who his boss is? He has no other supervisor except for the people, his constituents, the voters. Whether they voted for him or not, and how he would know who voted for him and who didn't, is pretty impossible. But at the same time, he reports and answers to the people. And therein lies his power and his duty, because he promised when he took his job that he would uphold, defend, protect, and preserve the God-given rights of all people within his county. We have 3,086 sheriffs in America, and if every sheriff was doing this, we would have our Constitution and our liberty back tomorrow, or actually today.
Sheriff Mack, thank you for your explanation. Who knew that? I don't know how many people knew that sheriffs are the only law enforcement officers in the country that are elected. It's really interesting because a lot of people thought, police chiefs and sheriffs were the same, but that's really not true. Police chiefs aren't elected, sheriffs are. And it's interesting, I didn't know this, but 3 signers of the Declaration of Independence were sheriffs. That's crazy. I didn't even know that. I don't think many people know that at all. That's probably some even less than 1% of people know. That's a pretty big deal. And the way that you explained that sheriffs answer to the people makes you realize that, people have more power than we think we do. It's like, the government's there to serve us. The government isn't the government isn't to do whatever we say. Like, the government's there to take care of us. It's being a servant. You don't go to become a celebrity. Okay. There is no such thing as a political celebrity. There's not. And thank you again for, standing up for the Constitution and helping kids like me better understand it. Second thing I want to say is talking about the Brady Bill. And you won the case against Bill Clinton, the 42nd president. What was the Brady Bill, and why did you think it was so what about it did you think made it unconstitutional?
I didn't think I knew, and I hope that doesn't sound arrogant, but I knew it was, and for 2 big reasons. One is the first judge who heard the case actually made a quote describing why I sued. And he said this: Mack is thus forced, and I'm quoting, Mack is thus forced to choose between keeping his oath or obeying the act, subjecting himself to possible sanctions, end quote. So I thought it was remarkable that a judge, a federal judge, a federal district judge in Tucson, Arizona, actually recognized why I was suing. And the important part of that was is my own government was forcing me to violate my oath. And specifically, they assigned us, they ordered us, the federal government ordered the sheriffs of this country to enforce the gun control associated with the Brady Bill. They wanted us, they demanded, they commanded us to enforce this for them without any negotiation, without any contract, without any input from us, just ordering us to do it because they said so. Now get this. The other reason why I know this was unconstitutional is because they threatened to arrest us if we failed to comply. True story. All of this is documented. I'm not making any of this up. As a matter of fact, if you go to my website, you can get a review. A little tiny booklet fits right in your shirt pocket, and it's only 15 pages long. But this is a highlighted version of my Supreme Court case. So get the title there, and then on my website, if you go through shopping and the store, it has a picture of my hand holding this booklet like that. And so if you see a man's hand holding that booklet, order hundreds of those. These are only like $3 each. You can get 5 for $10 or whatever. And you need to hand these out to local officials, city councils, your county attorney, your sheriff, and anyone else in government. Make sure your governor gets one and your state legislatures. And so this is the most powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of our country. It's the most powerful state sovereignty case. And it proves unquestionably that the federal government is not our boss. Historically speaking, who formed the federal government? We did. The states, the 13 original states or 13 original colonies, they formed with their delegates consisting of the founding fathers, they formed the new federal government. And the 10th Amendment, which we sued on, which is the most powerful when it comes to stopping the federal government and putting a stop sign up to the federal government saying, there's a few things that the states and the sheriffs are not going to allow you to do in our jurisdictions because the federal government is not our boss. They are our servant. They are a creature of the states, not the other way around. The federal government didn't form us. We formed them. And we gave them very limited powers. The Constitution was written specifically to limit what the federal government could do. And it's our job today as sheriffs and as local officials to make sure the federal government stays within their proper lane. And so the biggest reason I sued was to protect the office of sheriff from the overreach of government and to keep my oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, specifically in this case, gun control and the Second Amendment. I swore an oath in God's name that I would uphold and defend the Constitution. The last time I checked, the Second Amendment is part of that Constitution.
Wow, I didn't realize that the Brady Bill tried to force sheriffs to carry out federal orders like that. Now I understand how the Brady Bill went against the 10th Amendment, which protects states' rights. I think that's great that, you stood up for that and you saw it as unconstitutional and you stood up for that, which I think we need more people in the conservative movement to stand up for what they believe in, to stand up for what they know is right. And the fact that you won a case like that is incredible because not many people get to say that they won a Supreme Court case, let alone been to the Supreme Court. That's very, very rare. And that your case was even heard because I think cases probably have to be turned down. There's only a certain period of time that the Supreme Court's actually in session hearing cases. And you won the Supreme Court, not just against anybody, but against the 42nd President, Bill Clinton. I don't know how many presidents have been taken to the Supreme Court, but that's pretty incredible that you got to do that and win your case. That's very remarkable. And I have one question though. So I'm sure as many people are wanting the same thing. Under the Brady Bill, were you saying that as a sheriff, you were going to have to help take away people's guns? Is that what they were trying to make you do?
No, we had to do background checks that would prove whether or not, or they get our permission after we do background checks and mental history checks, whether or not they could have a gun at all. So I'm not taking them away from them. I'm saying they can't have one to begin with. And the sheriff is not supposed to have that kind of authority over the people he works for. And so it wasn't taking guns away. It was keeping them from having them. And then what most people don't know, historically speaking, about Brady Bill 1, there was actually 5 Brady bills scheduled to be passed 1 year after the other until in 5 years, Brady Bill 5 would have put the nail in the coffin of the Second Amendment. And there's no question about that. So Brady Bill 2 was actually introduced by Senator Howard Metzenbaum from New York just 2 weeks after I filed on February 28, 1994 is when I filed, and I was alone at that time. No one else, no other sheriff, no one else at all was filing or helping with this lawsuit. And then about 5 weeks later, Sheriff Prince from Montana joined, and then 5 other sheriffs from across the country joined. And that was really essential to the success of the case. But at the same time, we had a huge hand in stopping Brady Bills 2, 3, 4, and 5 because they wanted to see what was going to happen with the litigation regarding Brady Bill 1. And after we won, Brady Bills 2, 3, 4, and 5 never were heard from again, which literally saved the Second Amendment. And a lot of people don't know about that, but it is absolutely true.
Last question I want to ask is going back to the sheriff side of it. What can we do to improve the relationship between the sheriff's office and the people in the community?
You can't be sitting around and hoping that the sheriff's going to come by and get to know you. Quite the opposite. You need to initiate a relationship with your sheriff. Well, heck, everybody in the county can't contact the sheriff. Well, yeah, a lot can. Maybe in some of the major metropolitan areas, it might be difficult. But at the same time, you can email him. You can stop by his office. You can take him a batch of cookies and make an appointment with him. And you and 20 other people can go and talk to him and interview him and vet him and see if he plans to keep his oath that he was required by the Sixth Amendment, the 6th article of the U.S. Constitution to swear an oath of allegiance to the Constitution. Ask him how he intends to do that, or even if he intends to do that. And then if you have somebody you want to support the next election or somebody that you want to oppose, and find someone else to be your sheriff, the ultimate protector of the people within that county jurisdiction. And so, yes, the question is excellent because we want you to, and you need to. It's vital that you know who your sheriff is and that you know what he plans to do and how he intends to execute his job. Ask him a question. How about this one? If the federal government, which they have threatened to do numerous times and have done in some jurisdictions, like Chicago and New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina aftermath, if they say they're going to come get our guns, which they did in New Orleans during Katrina, and they've done that in Chicago numerous times, and Washington, D.C., what will you do to stop them from taking my gun or taking guns from law-abiding citizens? Will you participate and help them? Or will you stand in the way? Or will you hide and just let them do it and then campaign that you were against it, but there was nothing you could do? You promised in God's name when you took your oath that you would uphold and defend the Constitution. Are you going to or not? That is the question you want to ask him. You also want to ask him if he's willing to form a posse. And most sheriffs already have a posse. It's called the Search and Rescue Squad, which are made up of volunteers within the county.
Thank you for your answer about building trust. You made it clear about how people can get to know their sheriffs by learning the role that they play in the community. You also have helped people see that kids have a part as well, such as asking thoughtful questions, knowing the Constitution and their rights, like federal rights, states' rights. Very important, because if you don't know your rights, people can do things that goes against your rights, and you're not going to fight back because you don't know better. So if you know better, that can change everything. It's great how you encourage both sheriffs and everyday citizens to work together to defend liberty. When you said the people are the boss, that couldn't be any more true, because the government is there to work and take care for us. They're not there, so we can just, bow down and do whatever they tell us. They have their rules and their jurisdiction. They're servants, they're great people. We should respect our government. We should tolerate our government when they're doing right, but they have their boundaries too. And you don't join the government and do a government job so you can be treated as a political celebrity, because there's no such thing as a political celebrity. Even the president is not a political celebrity. They're a servant. That your story about how you stood up for the Constitution, even when it meant going all the way to the Supreme Court, is incredible. You help people see that knowing your rights isn't just important, it's essential, because when you don't know your rights, people can violate them, and you're not going to fight back because you don't know better. So you've shown that you're a good example that one person can make a real difference, and who knows where society would be today if you never existed. If you never existed, who knows? Just like in the story of It's a Wonderful Life, when George Bailey wishes, he had never been born, and he sees, and then that becomes a reality. The whole society is a disaster. Who knows where, America would be if you never existed? So that's really great. Well, so where do people go to find more about the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and your website?
Well, it is my website. It's CSPOA, stands for Constitutional Sheriffs Peace Officers Association, CSPOA.org. And you can get my books. I've written 7 or 8 books. They're all there. And probably the best one is The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. Then there's another one called The Proper Role of Law Enforcement. Another one called The Magic of Gun Control. And boy, that's a good book about the Second Amendment. And then, let's see. Oh, my first book, From My Cold Dead Fingers, Why America Needs Guns. And then, of course, don't forget, folks, that you should have this. Everyone should be familiar with this case, and make sure that all your local officials are familiar with the case called Mack v.U.S. Prince and I were the 2 sheriffs out of the 7 that went to the Supreme Court in December of 1996. And then the ruling came out, written by Justice Antonin Scalia, June 27, 1997. So we're coming right up real soon on the 28th anniversary of this most miraculous, inspired Supreme Court victory. And I will say, proudly, this is the only time in U.S. history where sheriffs sued the federal government and won a landmark decision at the United States Supreme Court. Everyone should want to know what that's about.
Thank you again for, for believing that you were doing the right thing and keeping your oath, because that is great. Sheriff Mack, you're a blessing. Thank you.
We would like to thank our special guest, Sheriff Richard Mack, and also thank you, Jack Lani, for your wonderful preparation in doing this interview. We'd also like to thank all of you for watching this interview and helping us to restore God back to America's history. Now, one of the things that we'd like for you to do before you go is to go and check out your state constitution and visit your local community to understand more about the role of sheriffs. There'll be more information on our website at wethekids.us. And we also ask you to be aware of anyone who might be interested in joining We the Kids, especially the youth of this nation. If you are interested, please contact us again at wethekids.us. We're also accepting donations, and we greatly appreciate anything that you might be able to offer to support us in this great effort. May God bless you, and may God bless America. Thank you.